So in this video I'll be showing you how to draw a picture very similar to this. It's ideal for beginners, so if you're just starting out with this kind of drawing, I will put some timestamps and chapters in the video description so you can jump around to whichever part you need to watch, or you can just sit back and enjoy. So for this drawing what you're going to need is a large roll of sellotape, because I like to use that to draw around the inside. I'm also going to use a black marker pen, and I'm going to use my unipin fineliner. I quite often use gel pens, so if you don't have a fineliner, a gel pen will be perfectly fine. I'm also going to be using my circle template. If you don't have one of these, do have a look around your house for anything that's circular that you can just draw around for this drawing. Small rolls of sellotape are also very good, and I quite often use my pencil sharpener as well. So I'm just using a sheet of A4 cartridge paper to do this drawing. If you think A4 size is going to be a little bit daunting for you, then A5 would be perfectly fine. So I like to start most of my drawings by drawing a border around my page. This is so that I've got a definitive line to draw up to, because I hate it when I go off the edge of the paper. So this is just my personal preference. But yeah, you might like to try it and see how you get on with that as well. So the first thing we're going to do is, using the black marker pen, I'm just going to draw some circles on the page using the large roll of sellotape, drawing around the inside. I'm also going to draw a couple of part circles going off the page, and if you're having a go at this yourself, do try to arrange the circles in a similar pattern. Don't forget you can pause the video at any time, you can save it to your playlist and come back to it later if you need to. So we've got 6 circles on the page, 3 of them are complete and 3 of them are part circles. So the next stage is we're going to draw some lines across the page with the marker pen. I'm just going to wiggle these loosely across the page, directly through 2 of the full circles. And then I'm going to wiggle over the top of it. So as I'm drawing this second line, I'm trying to kind of loosely cross it over itself so that I'm creating some gaps. And I'm going to do exactly the same with these 2 circles as well. And I'm going to draw some more lines in exactly the same way, and my aim is to intersect all of the large circles. Now when you're using a marker pen, if you hold it in one place for too long on the cartridge paper, you'll start to get little bleeds and little burrs in the ink. So try to do this fairly quickly so that you're not getting the burrs. Now don't worry too much if your gaps are not too big or they're too big. So with the horizontal lines in place, I'm now going to draw some vertical lines, and I'm just drawing these through the circles. Deciding where to put the lines is the hardest part, but you shouldn't really overthink this process. So I want my vertical lines to intersect my circles, but I don't want the vertical lines to intersect the circles more than once. So I'm trying not to overthink it here, but for this last circle I've decided that I'm going to bring the line down from the top left, because I don't want to intersect the circles more than once with the vertical lines. So I felt like there's a bit too much of a gap. So just to break up the gap, I've put in another horizontal line. So all of our horizontal lines have got a crossover. So the second line that we put across is making some little sections. You'll see why later, and hopefully it'll all make sense. So the next part is I'm going to put in the smaller circles, and I'm just looking to where the gaps are. I'm using the largest circle on my circle template, and I want to place these circles where the gaps are on the page. So the first two I've happily intersected the larger circles, and the third one I've just intersected the horizontal line. I'm trying to make sure that there is space around the circle, but again, I'm trying not to overthink it. I'm just looking to where the gaps are and filling those gaps in with the circles. So now I've moved on to a smaller size circle, and I'm just adding these in fairly randomly, actually, just where I think they'll fit. You'll see I'm sliding the stencil around the page just to kind of get a feel for where the circles will go. So if you're drawing it along with me, you can do your best to copy the position of my circles, but your picture won't be exactly the same as mine. But yeah, I'm just randomly popping them on wherever I feel they should go. Now that's a skill that maybe has happened over time because I've done a few of these drawings, but do allow yourself to do 2 or 3 of these before you really get a feel for what you're trying to achieve. So the next stage is to just round off all of the corners. So this rounding off technique is a neurographic art style technique. I have talked about it before, but if you're new, then I'll just briefly talk you through it. What you do is wherever the lines intersect, you just want to very gently just curve off all the corners. Now I'm doing this using my fineliner. I'm still trying to get to grips with these fineliners. I very often use a gel pen, so if you've only got a gel pen to hand, the process is exactly the same. You're just going to work your way across the drawing, curving off all of the corners. Now this is a really relaxing process and it doesn't require an awful lot of thought, and for me it's one of the most enjoyable parts of doing the drawings. If you don't have a lot of patience, then you might find this task a little bit daunting, like, oh, I've got to do all this. But I can just really recommend that you just step back from the bigger picture and just focus on the part that you're working on as you're working on it. Because if you do take into consideration how much work or how long it's going to take, it will very much take away from the relaxation process and the mindfulness of doing this kind of drawing. So this series of videos is intended as a little introduction to doodling and neurographic and Zentangle work. I'm just sharing with you the things I've learned on my journey, and I hope you find it useful. So if you're drawing along with me, you might want to pause the video now, and once all of your edges have been curved off, you can resume the video. So you can already see that the picture has already been transformed just by rounding off all of those corners. There's something quite striking about it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some colour. I'll be colouring mine in with some coloured pencil and some metallic gold gel pen. If you don't have these art mediums, then do pick whatever you've got to hand. You could use watercolour paint, you could use felt tip pen or acrylic paint. How you fill in these circles is entirely up to you, but I'm going to talk you through what I'm doing on this drawing. So I'm going to use these metallic colouring pencils, and I'm going to use the black grey one that's in this set. These are just decotime, very cheap, £3 a pack pencils, and I've found that they're perfectly good for just everyday drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to shade in very lightly around the edge of the large circles. Now I'm making very small backwards and forwards, almost circular motions, and I'm also holding the pencil quite far away from the tip. Now this is because I'm holding it further away means that I'm getting a lighter pressure when I'm trying to lay the pigment down on the page. So I'm only focusing on the large circle, and I'm not bringing the coloured pencil more than a centimetre up around the edge of the main circle. And I'm trying to make sure that my pressure is much lighter towards the middle of the circle. And now I'm going to go back and just build up a bit more colour on the very edge of the circle. I'm also not colouring in over the horizontal lines along the page. Now I'm fairly new at using colouring pencils, so there might be better techniques of doing this. So if you've got more experience than me and you've got some tips to share, do leave them in the comments below. Because yeah, I've only been using coloured pencils for about 6 months now. I do find them quite relaxing, but it does take a lot of time. So with a slightly harder pressure, the first few millimetres around the edge of the circle, applying a little bit more pressure, and you can already see that tonal effect coming out on the circle. When I can see that there is a bit of more pressure in some areas, I'll just go back and I'll try and lightly blend those out. And I do this by maybe bringing the colour further into the middle of the circle, but with a lighter pressure, or going back and working a little bit harder with the pressure. And as I go in for more detail, you'll notice that I move my hand closer to the nib of the pencil. So I'm not going to use any other special techniques on these circles, but what I am going to do is work my way around and colour in all of the circles in this way. So for the intersecting circles, I'm going to forget about the circle I've just coloured in, and I'm going to treat this little circle, this medium-sized circle, as an entity of its own, and I'm going to do exactly the same process, working my way around the edge of the circle with a very light pressure and then building it up. And what will happen is that you will see that the bubbles, even though they're lying on top of each other, you can see that they're still their own individual bubbles, but they've got that transparency to them. So you want to continue this process for all of the bubbles on the page. So it is quite a long process to colour in all of the bubbles on the page, but overall this drawing took me about 40 minutes to complete. which isn't a huge amount of time. And the ideal thing about this kind of drawing is you can stop and start it. So if you've only got 10 minutes to spare just to relax and unwind, you can do that. You can just put it down, pick it up whenever it's convenient. And I quite often just carry my sketchbook around with me from room to room, and I will draw 10 minutes whilst dinner's cooking, or I'll sit down and draw for 10 minutes before my programme's starting on the television. So you don't actually have to say, right, I've got a whole afternoon to myself, I'm going to draw. You can actually just find little snippets in your day where you can draw. And what I find when I'm drawing, and especially when I'm doing something repetitive like this, is that I really switch off. I stop thinking, I stop worrying, I'm just, it's meditative. It's absolutely a meditative process for me, especially when I'm working on something that is relatively simple like this. I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm supposed to do, I haven't got to give it any extra thought. That's what's relaxing. Life out there is just busy, busy, busy. You're scrolling on your phone and everything is getting thrown at you and it's all visually in your face. And this is just real time just to switch off. So if you don't have coloured pencils and you're using any other art medium, the same kind of process will apply. You want to use your colour to make sure that you've got a dark edge that gradiates in towards the middle of the circles. I'm not sure how easy that would be to do with something like a felt tip pen, but it's totally possible if you've got paints or inks. So once all of the circles have been coloured in, we're going to fill in all of the gaps on the horizontal lines with the coloured gel pen. So I'm just going to work my way across all of the horizontal lines. Wherever there's a gap, I'm just going to fill that in with the gold pen. Now, these are just very cheap metallic gel pens from Hobbycraft, and I like the gold metallic ones because they just add a little bit of sparkle to the page. But you could use any contrasting colour that you like, and you could also do this in felt tip pen or a fineliner. I like the gel pens because they give a very solid flat colour, and that's what I wanted to achieve with this. So that's it, that's all you need to do. Just carry on colouring in all of those little gaps, and then your picture will be complete. So I hope that you found this video useful or interesting. Do let me know if you have a go, and do hit that like button if you've made it this far. Your support is genuinely very much appreciated. And I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Let's Doodle. So I think next time we're going to ramp it up a little bit, and I'm just going to share with you all of the easy designs that I found at the start of my doodle journey. And hopefully it will help kickstart your journey, or just give you a chance to relax. And yes, I have just noticed that I missed a bit on the second vein down. Just now as I'm doing it. That frequently happens to me when I'm drawing, where I'll just miss a bit because I'm just in a little world of my own and I don't often step back and look at the big picture, but I will. But that's what makes my work unique, my brain fog.